So this David Goggins is the only man in history to complete elite training as a Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, and Air Force tactical air controller. The fittest real man in America. There's just this page 153. He was talking about Hell Week. He was talking about Hell Week for class 235. You're going to have this guy named John Skop who's going to die. And then he goes on and he talks about how he has to run. And I don't know, this is the next week or the next training where they keep on rolling duct tape. He wraps up his legs. He's got a broken shin, 2 broken shins, and he wraps up his legs and he still fucking runs like miles anyways. So I'm just going to read a couple pages of this Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I had to block it out of my mind. I went into a dark place where there was just me and the pain and suffering. I didn't focus on my classmates or my instructors. I went full caveman. I was willing to die to make it through that motherfucker. I wasn't the only one. Late on Wednesday night with 36 hours to go before the end of Hell Week, tragedy hit class 235. We were in the pool for an evolution called the Caterpillar Swim, in which each boat crew swam on their backs, legs locked around torsos in a chain. We had to use our hands in concert to swim. We mustered up at the pool. There were just 26 guys left, and one of them was named John Skop. Mr. Skop was a specimen at 6 foot 2 inches, 225 pounds, but he'd been sick from breakout and had been in and out of med check all week. While 25 of us stood at attention on the pool deck, swollen, chafed, bleeding, he sat on the stairs by the pool, jackhammering in the cold. He looked like he was freezing, but waves of heat poured off of his skin. His body was a radiator on full blast. I could feel him from 10 feet away. I'd had double pneumonia during my first Hell Week and knew what it looked and felt like. His alveoli or air sacs were filling with fluid. He couldn't clear them, so he could barely breathe, which exacerbated his problem. When pneumonia goes uncontrolled, it can lead to pulmonary edema, which can be deadly, and he was halfway there. Sure enough, during the Caterpillar Swim, his legs went limp, and he darted to the bottom of the pool like a doll stuffed with lead. 2 instructors jumped in after him, and from there, it was chaos. They ordered us out of the water and lined us up along the fence with our backs facing the pool as medics worked to revive Mr. Skop. We heard everything and knew his chances were slipping. 5 minutes later, he still wasn't breathing, and they ordered us to the locker room. Mr. Skop was transported to the hospital, and we were told to run back to the BUDS, BUD /S classroom. We didn't know it yet, but Hell Week was already over. Minutes later, SBG walked in and delivered the news cold. Mr. Skop is dead, he said. He took stock of the room. His words had been a collective gut punch to men who were already on the knife's edge after nearly a week with no sleep and no relief. SBG didn't give a fuck. This is the world you live in. He's not the first, and he won't be the last to die in your line of work. He looked over at Mr. Skop's roommate and said, "Mr. Moore, don't steal any of his shit." Then he left the room like it was just another fucked up day. I felt torn between grief, nausea, and relief. I was sad and sick to my stomach that Mr. Skop had died, and we were all relieved to have survived Hell Week, but the way SBG handled it was straightforward. No bullshit. I remember thinking if all SEALs were like him, this would definitely be the world for me. Talk about mixed emotions. See, most civilians don't understand that you need a certain level of callousness to do the job we were being trained to do. To live in a brutal world, you have to accept cold-blooded truths. I'm not saying it's good, and I'm not necessarily proud of it, But special ops is a calloused world, and it demands a calloused mind. Hell Week had ended 36 hours earlier. There was no pizza or brown shirt ceremony on the grinder, but 25 men out of a possible 156 had made it. Once again, I was one of the few. I was swollen like a Pillsbury doughboy and on crutches with 21 weeks of training still to come. My patella was intact, but both of my shins were slivered with small fractures. It gets worse. The instructors were surly because they'd been forced to call Hell Week prematurely, so they ended walk week after just 48 hours. By every conceivable metric, my chances of graduating were looking bleak once again. I was fucked. When I moved my ankle, my shins were activated and I felt searing pain, which is a monumental problem because a typical week in buds demands up to 60 miles of running. Imagine running 60 miles on two broken shins. Most of the guys in Class 235 lived on base at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado. I lived about 20 miles away in a $700 a month studio apartment, $700 a month studio apartment with the mold problem in Chula Vista, which I shared with my pregnant wife and stepdaughter. After she got pregnant, Pam and I remarried. I financed a new Honda Passport, which put me roughly $60,000 in debt, and the three of us drove out from Indiana to San Diego to restart our family. I'd just cleared Hell Week for the second time in a calendar year, and she was set to deliver our baby right around graduation, but there was no happiness in my head or my soul. How could there be? We lived in a shithole that was at the edge of affordability, and my body was broken once again. If I couldn't make it through, I wouldn't even be able to afford rent. Would have to start all over again and find a new line of work. I could not and would not let that happen. The night before first phase kicked back up in intensity, I shaved my head, stared into my reflection. For almost 2 years straight, I've been taking pain to the extreme and coming back for more. I succeeded in spurts only to be buried alive in failure that night. The only night that allowed me to continue pushing forward was the knowledge that everything I'd been through had helped callous my mind. The question was, how thick was the callus? How much pain could one man take? Did I have it in me to run on broken legs? Did I have it in me to run on broken legs? I woke up at 3:30 in the next morning and drove to the base. I limped to the Bud's cage where we kept our gear and slumped onto a bench, dropping my backpack at my feet. It was dark as hell inside and out, and I was all alone. I could hear the rolling surf in the distance as I dug through my dive bag. Buried beneath my dive gear were 2 rolls of duct tape. I could only shake my head and smile in disbelief as I grabbed them, knowing how insane my plan was. I carefully pulled a thick black tube stock over my right foot. The shin was tender to the touch, and even the slightest twitch of the ankle joint registered high on the suffering scale. From there, I looped the tape around my heel and then up over my ankle and back down to my heel, eventually moving both down the foot and up my calf until my entire lower leg and foot were wrapped tight. That was just the first coat. Then I put on another black tube sock on and taped my foot and ankle the same way. By the time I was done, I had 2 sock layers and 2 tape layers, and once my foot was laced up in the boot, my ankle and shin were protected and immobilized. Satisfied, I did up my left foot, and an hour later, it was as though both my lower legs were sunk into soft cast. It still hurt to walk, but the torture that I had felt when my ankle moved was more tolerable. At least I thought so. I'd find out for sure when we started to run. Our first training run that day was my trial by fire, and I did the best I could to run with my hip flexors. Usually we let our feet and lower legs drive the rhythm. I had to reverse that. It took intense focus to isolate each movement and generate motion and power in my legs from the hip down. And for the first 30 minutes, the pain was the worst I'd ever felt in my life. The tape cut into my skin while the pounding sent shockwaves of agony up my slivered shins. This was just the first run in what promised to be 5 months of continual pain. Was it possible to survive this? Day after day, I thought about quitting. If failure was my future and I'd have to rethink my life completely, what was the point of this exercise? Why delay the inevitable? Was I fucked in the head? Each and every thought boiled down to the same old simple question. Why? Why? The only way to guarantee failure is to quit right now, motherfucker. I was talking to myself right now, silently screaming over the din of anguish that was crushing my mind and soul. Take the pain or it won't just be your failure. It'll be your family's failure. I imagine the feeling I would have if I could actually pull through, if I could actually pull this off, if I could endure the pain required to complete this mission that bumped me another half mile before more pain rained down and swirled within me like a typhoon. People have a hard time going through buds healthy, and you're going through it on broken legs. Who else would even think of this? I asked, who else would be able to run even on 1 minute on a broken leg? Who else would be able to run even 1 minute on one broken leg, let alone two? Only Goggins. You're 20 minutes in the business, Goggins. You're a fucking machine. Each step you run from now until the end will only make you harder. That last message cracked the code like a password. My calloused mind was my ticket forward, and at the 40-minute mark, something remarkable happened. Something remarkable happened. The pain receded to low tide. The tape had loosened so it wasn't cutting into my skin, and my muscles and bones were warm enough to take some pounding. The pain would come and go throughout the day, but it became much more manageable. And when the pain did show up, I told myself it was proof of how tough I was and how much tougher I was becoming day after day. The same ritual played itself out. I showed up early, duct taped my feet, endured 30 minutes of extreme pain, talked myself through it, and survived. This was no fake it till you make it bullshit to me. The fact that I showed up every day willing to put myself through something like that was truly amazing. The instructors rewarded me for it too. They offered to bind my hands and feet and throw me in the pool to see if I could swim for 4 fucking laps. In fact, they didn't offer, they insisted. This was one part of an evolution they like to call drown proofing. I prefer to call it controlled drowning. With our hands bound behind us and feet tied behind our back, all we could do is dolphin kick. And unlike some of the experienced swimmers in our class who look like they've been pulled from the Michael Phelps gene pool, my dolphin kick was that of a stationary rocking horse. It provided about the same propulsion. I was continually out of breath, fighting to stay near the surface, chicken necking my head above the water to get a breath, only to sink down and kick hard, trying in vain to find momentum. I practiced for weeks. I'd hit the pool and even experimented with wetsuit shorts to see if I could hide them under my uniform to provide some buoyancy. This made it look like I was wearing a diaper under the tight-ass nut-hugging UDT shorts, and they didn't help. But all that practice did get me comfortable enough with the feeling of drowning, and I was able to endure and pass that test. We had another brutal underwater evolution in second phase, aka dive phase. Again, it involved treading water, which always sounds basic as hell whenever I write it, but for this drill. So that's the main thing right there. He ran on broken shins, push-ups, sit-ups, flutter kicks, 8-count bodybuilders, advanced burpees galore. But first they told us to kneel down and dig holes with our hands large enough to bury ourselves up to the neck for some unspecified length of time. I was smiling my ass off and digging deep when one of the instructors came up with a new creative way to torture me. "Goggins, get up. You like this shit too much." I laughed and kept digging, but he was serious. I said, "Get up, Goggins. You're getting way too much pleasure." I stood up, stepped to the side, and watched my classmates suffer for the next 30 minutes without me. From then on, the instructors stopped including me in their beatdowns. When the class was ordered to do push-ups, sit-ups, or get wet and sandy, they'd always exclude me. I took it as a point of pride that I'd finally broken the will of the entire Bud staff, but also missed the beatdowns because I saw them as opportunities to callous my mind. Now they were over for me. Considering that the grinder was center stage for a lot of Navy SEAL training, it makes sense that's where Bud's graduation is held. Families fly in Fathers, brothers puff their chest out. Mothers, wives, girlfriends are all done up and drop dead gorgeous instead of pain and misery. It was all smiles on that patch of asphalt as the graduates of Class 235 mustered up in our dresses, white beneath a huge American flag billowing in the sea breeze. To our right was the infamous bell that 130 of our classmates tolled in order to quit what was arguably the most challenging training in the military. Each of us was introduced and acknowledged individually. My mother had tears of joy in her eyes when my name was called, but strangely I didn't feel much of anything except sadness. Are you coming to the tree? The man murder. They say he murdered 3. Are you coming to the tree? Coming to the hanging tree at midnight, so you can wear this robe. Are you coming to the tree? Strange things have happened. I want to see if this guy, John Skop. John Skop, is John Skop real? And then, did he use his real name? Lieutenant John Anthony Skop. He reported to basic underwater demolition SEAL training on January 10th, 2001. Sailor's death during Navy SEAL training ruled homicide. Man dies in Navy SEAL training exercise. Lieutenant John Anthony Skop Jr., 29 of Buffalo, New York, died Wednesday night during a swimming exercise at the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado. Oh, now there's a paywall, so we can't read that one. Forever loved, never forgotten. Seems like a pretty all-American man, G.I. Joe. The Navy Gold Star program is eternally grateful for the sacrifice of those service members who have died in service to our country. To help us to never forget, we have set up this tribute page to honor and remember the memory of those lives. If you would like to honor the memory of your sailor or soldier, John Skop enlisted in the Navy 1994 as an intelligence specialist and was later awarded a commission as ensign through Officer Candidate School. In 96, John was promoted to Lieutenant Junior grade March 8th, 1998. Lieutenant 2000, Lieutenant Skop was first assigned as the Air Intelligence Officer at Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron VQ-5 located in San Diego, California from January 1997 to October 1998. He served on the USS Nimitz CVN-68 for a six-month deployment and participated in Operation Southern Watch in the early 1998 with the CVW-9 intelligence team. His assignment to Special Warfare Community to SEAL Team 1 as the intelligence officer from October 98 to January, my God. It doesn't say the goddamn LA Times, sailor's death during Navy SEAL training ruled homicide, coroner cites instructors. The death of a 21-year-old sailor during Navy SEAL training has been ruled a homicide by the San Diego County Medical Examiner. The autopsy report on James Derek Loveless says that while some might view the May 6th death as an accident, the actions or inactions of the instructors and other individuals involved were excessive and directly contributed to the death. An unnamed Navy instructor in Coronado repeatedly dunked Loveless underwater during a 5-minute period. James Derek Loveless. I'm talking about John Skop here, you assholes. Are you coming to the tree. They said they'd kill a man. Lieutenant John Anthony Skop of Buffalo, New York, died during a Hell Week swimming exercise. Just one quick little line right there. John Anthony Skop. It does seem crazy. I mean, you're trying to push your body as far as you can, but it almost seems like you don't want them to fucking die. What? You don't want them to die. What are you barking at? They said Clarence High School community on Monday honored Lieutenant John Anthony Skop Jr. 13 years after his death caused by a lack of oxygen to his heart while training in San Diego. During a brief ceremony, a plaque was dedicated to the Navy SEAL in the high school's lobby alongside memorials to other fallen military members who are also alumni. Are you coming to the tree? They say they kill a man who they said murdered 3. Are you? Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. If we met at midnight in the hanging tree? Are you coming to the tree where a dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where I told you to run so we'd both be free? Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree? Wear a necklace of hope side by side with me. Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where I told you to run so we both be free? Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Where dead men called out for his love to flee. All right, what the hell? Wear a necklace of hope side by side with me. I feel like, why? I mean, that song, fucking 5 of the goddamn stanzas, like 4 of the 5 of the the same damn thing. The only difference is the words in the middle. That could have been the refrain. They could have just chopped it into 3 refrains and then had some sort of lyrics, tell us about the damn story. Are you coming to the tree? Wear a necklace of hope side by side with me. Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree?